Oh, it's Dave March, the Spy Guy. I still need to get around to doing that intro and outro videos using AI at some point. Yeah, so I found this very interesting article from off of one of the Slack groups I belong to about uh, the after effects of the Trump invasion, the snatch and grab of Maduro. And I wanted to discuss some of the things and give my analysis of it. We had several panels earlier this week covering a bunch of different subjects, including Venezuela. But I haven't been really doing any of my React videos to our usual friends that I do react to, because they are all saying the same thing. And they're all like, poo-pooing the effects and how dare you violate international law, and this is all that. And then, of course, I think it's all kind of nonsense, because we are going back to normal, as I like to describe. The last 80 years of history have been, as Tom Luongo would say, fake and gay, and as Adam Wasserman would say, we're like, we have not been living in reality. And now that we are living in reality, we have to face up to the fact that sometimes we're going to have effective imperialism. This is what I see when I look at this whole situation. It's effective imperialism. I was like, Daniel Davis had on this guy, Hemmingson, who's just like, if you're going to have someone talk about the effects of Venezuela, maybe you should have someone like who lived in Venezuela during the time, who can comment on that and know stuff like that. Or like we have when David S. was on the panel on doing, talking about the whole history of the Bolivian thing. No, this guy's like, well, they grabbed his wife because we all know that so that she won't be able to become this island of resistance in the South American nationalism. No, they grabbed his wife because apparently she's the person behind Maduro. She's the clever one, and she's feared as like the Uday Hussein of Venezuela, doing torture according to some of the sources I've looked at. So like she's like makes she's just like evil, and she's done way worse crimes than him apparently. But we'll go over the article and we'll talk about it. So here we go. So this is from Hot and Beach, Wellborn of Hot Air. Yep. I'm just getting through. Okay, here we go. The end of the free oil lifeline. For over 2 decades, the single most important pillar of the Cuban economy has been the Barrio Adentro Agreement, which saw Venezuela ship roughly 50,000 barrels of oil per day to Havana, essentially for free. Also, on the early part of the Bolivarian Revolution, they were sending free gasoline to Harlem and other depressed parts of the United States of America as a way to give you enough fuel to old Uncle Sam. Essentially for free. With the U.S. military now securing Venezuelan ports and oil fields following yesterday's operation, these shipments have hit zero overnight. Cuba, which is already cash-strapped, simply does not have the foreign currency reserves to buy the amount of oil on the open market at global prices, meaning the island's energy supply has effectively been cut in half instantly. Yeah, a lot of people are saying Havana is next. I'm not too sure it will be like, if they can do what we've seen there, where it's making of a deal with give us Maduro and his wife, and we'll let you transition away, basically keep the Ba'ath Party in power in Iraq instead of just firing them all and creating an army of resistance. They're going to we're replacing the communists with a probably for at least for some time with a regular good old loyal American strongman. Also, if you want to have some fun time, I suggest you look up the original meaning of filibustering. It's completely different than what's going on in the Senate, and I think we might be seeing a return to that. Basically, filibustering in the 19th centuries, when a group of Americans would get together and go conquer or try and take over a South American country and run it as live like kings. It's a fun subject. I was going to get into it. So one of these days. Loss of the resale revenue stream. Few people realize that the Castro regime didn't just use Venezuelan oil to keep the lights on. They used it as a major source of income by selling the surplus. Oh, fuck's sake. Why do people phone me? I don't know. On the stream. God. Sorry. Where are we here? Few people, yeah, so Paul Maduro wipes out this middleman profit entirely, moving one of the few remaining sources of U.S. dollars the government used to import food and medicine, which will accelerate the humanitarian crisis breaking point. Another important point made in the article is that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 Cuban intelligence and security operatives, not to mention all the doctors, were leased to Maduro as another source of hard cash. So that money, all those guys are going back to Havana. He lost 32 Cuban soldiers when the Americans came for the boss. It sounds like that's more like 80. And I have even heard speculation that the reason why they did the snatch and grab is not because they want it was that basically Havana was not going to let him go. He'd been offered the chance to escape to many countries, but he's basically a prisoner in his own country because of his communist Cuban security forces. An interesting idea. So maybe that's why Venezuela, for all these people complaining about American occupation of Venezuela and how the local nationalists will inevitably rise against them. Did anyone think about the Cuban imperialism that was happening in Venezuela? No, you don't hear anybody talk about that but me. The rest of the Cuban detachment on their way back to the island. So for all the oil and security leasing funds that Cuba has been running on for decades are now gone overnight. They're suffering blackouts, which are going to get worse. Not to mention they have all that crisis from the hurricane going through them too. Russia, there's no one to save Cuba from itself this time. Russia can't, and no other remaining leftist American or Latin countries. Well, let's not think so. Lula might be interested in propping up Havana. So that could be, well, Brazil could also be interested, as I said, might be interested in helping keep a strategic partnership with Havana and keeping that going. So it will come with conditions, I'm sure. I don't think Lula is going to be surrounding himself with an 80-person Havana bodyguard, right? Yeah. Should the regime, people realize that the regime will quite literally have run out of fuel to suppress them in about 20 days. So we're going to see, like maybe we'll be seeing what happens Sri Lanka back at the beginning of the Russian invasion. Whatever happened to that? The Cuban regime's survival has depended the Malicanazo 2.0 risk. Cuban regime's survival always depends on the ability to repress dissent, but repression requires food. You need gasoline around the police trucks, transport. Oh, yeah. When the strategic fuel reserves run dry in 20 days, the Cuban military effectively loses its mobility. And if the populace rises up in a rebellion, the police can't physically deploy to stop it. Cuba, all those Cubans who live in Florida who say they want to go back to Cuba will have their chance. Trump has said he thinks Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. Just checking here. We have nothing there. So I got it. Okay. Iran is another country buffered by the widening circle ripples from Caracas. I remember on the one of our Venezuelan discussions on Saturday, a friend of mine messaged it. I read it was cracked. I was so disappointed when I woke up and read Caracas, not Canada. Not only did the mullahs almost or tenuous hold on public power take a symbolic right to the chin when the U.S. moves against an authoritarian dictator, but their national purse did as well. Okay, there was, the drone program. There's a multi-billion-dollar pseudo-clandestine cooperative drone program between the two countries that have been running with impunity for years. Iranian designs were manufactured in Venezuelan factories overseen by Iranian management and scientists. and should have been learned, but had been more widely disseminated. Well, you're getting some dissemination here. So, this is from he's taken an excerpt from, something Iran International, I guess, .com. Oh, I'll read from his preferred snapshot for you guys, whoever's watching this. Venezuela's drone industry, built on Iranian designs, is still overseen by Iranian specialists. We covered that. This program began in 2006 when Caracas signed a military deal with Tehran. Iranian firm Quds Aviation Industries supplied assembly kits. Venezuelan engineers trained in Iran, and Iranian teams later worked at the El Libertador Air Base in Maracay. Is it Morocco? The Maracaibo? Anyways, it's been a while since I played Pirates Gold. The program has since produced reconnaissance armed and kamikaze drones modeled on Iranian systems. Cooperation with Iran was essential. Not only could Venezuela never have developed drones on its own, but even today it's Iranians who control those facilities. Yeah, they'll be on their way out of town soon enough. The paper said it interviewed half a dozen people familiar with the ties between Caracas and Tehran and reviewed Venezuelan government documents. Many projects were designed as civilian ventures, such as bicycles or tractor factories served as front for more sensitive military work. You can be well assured that the United States will be getting control of these things, and maybe they might be donating or selling them off to Ukraine. That might be a thing. I wouldn't put it past them. Otherwise, this is going to be another hole, and we're also seeing maybe right now the Shaws are going to return to Iran again. I don't know. I wish I was still talking to my one friend who was in the top. Still had his number, but unfortunately that's disappeared off my WhatsApp. 6 days ago, the U.S. slapped sanctions on individuals associated with the programs. The Treasury Department slapped additional sanctions Tuesday on 10 people in entities based in Venezuela and Iran, accused of aiding Tehran's drone and missile program, including combat drones. Iran's ongoing provision of conventional weapons to Caracas constitutes a threat to U.S. interests in the Western Hemisphere, including the homeland, and the United States will all available measures to prevent this trade. And who knows, maybe some of the drones have been falling in the control of the Mexican drug cartels have been coming from this stuff. So Hezbollah and Iran are now taking another blow. Maybe, like I said, I mean, there's no water in Tehran. I think that's a big problem. They were talking about evacuating their capital. Like, that's not a good sign. And it's all, and not because of weather modification, though I've heard that's a possibility. A lot of it seems to be just direct mismanagement of like drilling holes in the aquifers, but instead of using for golf courses like Arizona did, they did it and dammed up rivers ineffectively for hydropower and all this other stuff. Hezbollah was responsible for setting up a domestic assembly for Iranian-designed drones such as the ANSI-100 at Maracaibo. Hezbollah operatives provided the expertise needed to weaponize these drones. I've heard about this island for a while. I thought it was a training facility, but maybe it isn't. Hezbollah also ran a Margarita Island facility, which serves as Hezbollah's most critical operational base in the Western Hemisphere. The facility was a hub for document forgery, allowing operatives to obtain Venezuelan identification and travel throughout Latin America undetected. There was a paramilitary training center on the island as well. That's what I've been thinking. Managed by the Nasruddin clan. In addition, the facility was also a consequential money laundering operation. So once again, strings are being cut among the people we don't like. If there's not it's still a psychological shot across the bow worth every dime. The Iranian regime is also scrambling to answer questions about cash reserves held in Venezuelan accounts. Oh, yeah. I think the Russians were pretty good. I doubt the Russians had any money in there, but Iranian regime might have had some money in there, and maybe China as well. Oh, they said we got those funds all out for the recent unpleasantness. Your money is safe. Trust us. I think some people's money got out, and I've said that we're going to get to that part right now. Money held by Iran and Venezuela has already been withdrawn. The head of the Iran-China Joint Chamber of Commerce said on Monday. Yes, Iranian assets worth an estimated $2 billion. Yeah, they didn't spill. And yeah, they've had some warning that when you have a giant aircraft carrier or battle group off the coast of Venezuela and started seizing boats, yeah, I think the Iranians probably got their money out. Anything more than an operational float that they needed for their stuff. Same with Russia, same with China, though China was a little embarrassed. Because the Americans waited. Why wouldn't they go in earlier? Because why would you go in the middle of the night on a sunny moonlit night when night vision won't be nearly as effective? Well, one, it looks really good on camera. Two, you had to wait until the Chinese delegation left because you didn't want to accidentally blow up a TV station of theirs again, or their embassy again, like in Yugoslavia. Vladimir Putin's heavy investment, and this is something I've been mentioning for a while. In the costly disaster failure, according to Russia, admit that Russia's 2 weeks to stop its allies from being picked off one by one in the West. I think this is all deal making in the background, like we've said in several of the panels. I think a deal was struck with Putin so that when because all the weapons contracts that were in there, some deal was made with Russia. That's maybe they keep their weapons contracts. Maybe some side deal, cash moves somewhere else. Maybe some of the sanctions relief that we're seeing is part of the deal coming down from that. Like, we have travel now directly between Minsk and America, so Russians can travel back and forth that way. This could have been part of that deal. There's deals that are going on. We'll let you get this traffic flowing through Minsk again. In exchange, you pull out of Venezuela and don't bail them out like you did in 2018. Yeah, it was Blackhole before yes, I talked about this. 2006 and 2014, the Moscow purchase, they gave them $10 billion in credit to buy weapons from Moscow. This agreement has been left both parties in a hole since oil prices tanked in 2014. Venezuela simply has been able to make its payments. Maybe they forgive the debt. But it certainly explains why none of the Russian contractors that had been training these guys also did not light up any of the incoming American helicopters, except for the one who did. I guess that guy didn't get the message. I'm sure he has been taken care of. It's also going to pinch Putin's income in the short term, as bringing all those oil reserves under U.S. control should keep prices relatively low. Hey, Vlad, I need the prices low for the future. Help me get through the midterms. Okay. And in exchange, we get more. China's now more heavily dependent on Russia. Right. Russian and Chinese weapon systems, which have always been regarded as a failed missile practice. No, they didn't fail. They got to stand down. We keep talking about this. The right bribes were given. Deals were cut with Russia. And that's what's happening here. That's my only difference with this guy. But, he's got to do the pro-Western angle. Even though the Venezuelan army probably operated, and there's still no excuse for the shambles made defending the city. If they don't fire off any rockets, because none of the guys who are using them are going to fire them off, that's Russia's fault. I don't think that a small special forces group is not the same thing as the entire frontage, a 1,200-mile front line in Ukraine. Yeah, yeah. With only a few casualties, not a bloodbath. There's nothing. Well, except for Cubans. Yeah. Well, this guy's like, there's nothing like a real-time test to see what's hype and what's real. I keep saying this. We have plenty of evidence of how effective this stuff is in Ukraine. Don't be so high on your horse when you bridle the guys to stand down. No one thinks China is going to invade Taiwan. I really hate when these guys do this. These are the same guys who you go and have a few beers with over a military industrial complex thing, and they'll all be like, yeah, Taiwan's got like 24 tactical nuclear bombs. We just don't tell that to anyone in the press. They got from Pakistan or something. Or from South Africa, maybe even earlier. Thanks to the flinching defense of our national security interests, the United States is now in the captain's chair. Well, we'll see. On notice, the Dawn Road Doctrine is now in effect. No more. And finally, for Latin America, who knows where this one's coming from? We're on in the episodes of Blunt, when divided regional leaders fail to produce homegrown solutions to their greatest crisis, the risk that the U.S. will step in and act alone is ever present, right? Much in the way that Putin did this when they tried to knock over Uzbekistan right before Ukraine war. No, none of these guys like Pablo Escobar are complaining about Putin doing that. But when America does it, it just shows you that a lot of these guys are not pro-America, are rooting for the other sides. And Danny Haiphong at least admits it. Right? He's like, I'm communist and I'm from Chinese American pro-communist guy. Okay, Danny. Reactions among Latin American leaders are split along predictable ideological lines. Brazil, Chile, and Mexico joined Cuba in condemning intervention that violated Venezuela's sovereignty. They don't mention how Cuba was, like I said, Cuban imperialism. No one talks about that. It's just as long as it's American imperialism that I have a problem with. Do I have a problem with American imperialism? Surely when it comes down to my country, yeah, I do have a little bit of problem with that. I'm Canadian. What do you want from me? But that's kind of what I wanted to cover today, give you a bit more of a briefing on and keep this channel and analysis going. So if you like this product and want to hear more of what I have to say or enjoy our panel shows, I encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to support me, you can do through my locals account. Anyways, that's all I have to say for today. Goodbye, good night, good luck. Thanks for watching.